Tyranny Busters. Tyranny Busters. Tyranny Busters.
Alright, here we go, going live, Tyranny Busters. Take it away, Mike.
Well, there we go. So you're here with us for another program of Tyranny Busters.
Tyranny Busters.
And what's Tyranny Busters all about, Mario?
Well, Tyranny Busters is about breaking through the matrix that's been wrapped around your feeble soul.
Oh, wow, man, that sounds like a philosopher. Can you explain that to the layman?
Well, to the layman, put down the drink, put down the pipe, put down the tutor for just a moment. And just listen, because tyranny, it's all around us, it's inside of us, it's growing, it's festering, it's being used in order to help you enslave yourself. You see, because tyranny, it's really just a seed a lot of the times, you know. It's a seed gets planted and then in your brain, and then you start to like treat it like it's your own thought, and it becomes the person who is putting this tyranny on you, they can walk away from you once they've successfully planted the lie inside of your brain, made you believe is true, because now everything that you will do in your life, all your thoughts, you'll think they're original, but they're really just going to be based off of this source lie, this tyranny, this fraud.
All right, well, Thomas Jefferson referred to tyranny upon the mind of man. In fact, he said, "I swear an eternal hostility on the altar of God over every form of tyranny upon the upon the mind of man." And so, you know, people think about tyranny as, you know, Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin, but tyranny is taking control of anything without the right to do so, say without the right or without permission. So if you get somebody to act, to do a certain thing, because you've applied a tyranny over their mind, you've led them to believe a certain thing to be true, and they act on that basis, there's an example of tyranny upon the mind. And, you know, it could be actually a tyranny that reaps a good result, or it could be a tyranny that reaps a horrible results. But the bottom line, it takes away your right to make a self-determined decision with the truth and the facts at your disposal. So throughout our lives, we've had tyranny upon our mind placed there by countless number of people, countless number of media outlets, political pundits, you name it, educational miseducation at schools and whatnot, falsehoods, things that aren't true, that are placed into your skull as if they're a fact, and then you operate on that basis. So that's what we're about busting, is these falsehoods. And you know, it could be as simple as you could have a relationship with somebody and you could have 1,000 lies between each other, and those are tyrannies upon the mind. Those are the things that well, we want to clear up and get rid of.
Yeah, I mean, the one tyranny that comes to my mind here, not on my mind, but that as this one that you know, we live in a free country, right? So you're told all your life, hey, you live in a free country, and so you believe this to be true, even though you're a slave. You got a slave tax on you. Your self-determination is completely, almost absolutely zero. You're not allowed to ingest what you want to ingest. You're not allowed to sell what you want to sell. You're not allowed to even call people that you want to call without having somebody else listening in. And so you believe that you're in a free country. And then once you do this, I mean, how hard is it for you to go to some other country that's obviously, you know, it has a dictator controlling them, and you say, well, hey, I'm here to free you, and there's no way that me shooting up your country and killing people and all this can in any way be anything other than me freeing you, because I am a representative of freedom.
Well, Mario, you skipped over a pretty important point there, and that point was that you know, people believe they're living in a free country. And then you mentioned some things that they don't have power control over. But the confusing thing to people is that if they have a decent life, a pretty good life, they're maybe they're prosperous and whatnot, they equate that to freedom. That the disconnect from that they do everything by permission is the thing that they're not catching. And so it seems to them that they're free because if the master says you got to do this, then you go, well, hey, it's for my own good, so this is only smart that I do this, so I'll do this. And I'm doing this, they think, okay, I'm doing this because, I want to do it. And they totally discount that they're actually don't have the power to not do it anymore, so therefore they've lost the freedom. So you could live on a great plantation with abundance and a great lifestyle and be like higher up in the caste system too because you got more money and whatnot. And it's just like if somebody gets a ticket and they have $1 million and paying a $500 ticket, no big deal. But someone else that gets a ticket and has $400 and they have to pay a $500 ticket, big deal. And they recognize the tyranny and the lack of freedom there. So this is the illusion that we need to work on and bust through here for people.
Well, man, I'm recognizing this illusion, Mike, and I'm not going to say that I'm perfected the ability to see through it, but I see through it, man, and I'm pissed off, Mike. I'm angry. I'm hostile. I'm stressed because I recognize this chain around my self-determination. And, I want to be cool, Mike. I don't want to be angry, man. I want to be a guy that you can sit down and have a nice conversation with. And, I think I'm approachable, but at the same time, man, I'm pissed off, man. And I want to be able to direct this anger at the slave master, not at the person who is also on the plantation with me. And, I feel like a lot of the times I end up misdirecting this anger at people who are in the same situation as me, man. But the reason why I do this so often is because I look at these people who are under this slave system and they're so happy about it, man. And they're telling me, oh, Mario, just vote for this guy and you're gonna be okay, man. He's gonna be a good slave master and you'll be all right. And I have to, I don't want to be a jerk to these people, man, but at the same time, I can't just let everybody get away with these fallacies.
All right, well, let's cut in there a little bit. Now, you got these people that are telling you to vote for the slave master, but they don't really know that that's what they're telling you.
Right.
And they think they're telling you to, that this is a better guy. This is a better guy to put the control of the country in his hands, and we're going to be better off for it. How do you get these folks to realize that either way they're asking for a master? They're rejecting freedom and they're looking for security.
Well, we have to define freedom, and we have to define what a free person is. And without having a common understanding of what freedom is, a common definition of what freedom is, then we're going to be at odds, and I'm going to be butting heads, and we're going to not have pleasant conversations. And I'm okay with this though, because I feel like really in my heart, even though I might be a little hostile and not always the one that you're going to be in agreement with, my heart is in the right place. It really is. But that doesn't answer your question, Mike. That doesn't answer your question on how we get folks to realize that whether or not it doesn't matter. If you vote for Barack Obama, you're going to get enslavement. If you vote for Mitt Romney, you're going to get enslavement, because the two teams that they represent are slave drivers. Today, on the news, everywhere, within moments, Joe Biden, he says, he's talking in front of a crowd of African American people, and he's talking about how Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney, how they're going to, their policies are going to be so destructive, and then he uses the words, they're going to put the chains back on y'all. And so, as if Joe Biden and Barack Obama aren't going to be putting the chains on y'all, man. Ain't none of them talking about getting rid of the slave tax. Ain't nobody talking to Joe Biden or Barack Obama or Paul Ryan or Mitt Romney or none of these establishment people actually get into the core of what it means to be free and the proper place that government has in protecting the right to be free. Because do we not have the right to be free just because we're alive?
All right, so, you're still kind of hitting around on what is freedom. You haven't nailed that yet.
Gotcha.
And what is wrong with our current system of everybody promising you security, and that you have to give up some of this freedom for the security. That's the system that we're embarked upon now, and people think that they're going to vote for Romney for some belief in some security, or they vote for Obama and some belief for some security. But I guess the bottom line is, what is freedom, and why is it important, and what happens ultimately when you don't have a system that secures your rights, your liberty, and you have a system that accepts the violation of your rights or your liberties?
Well, freedom, to get the definition, is the ability to do as you wish to do. That's it.
Can you go kill somebody?
Freedom, yes. That's where we go into this idea of liberty. See, liberty is kind of a more sophisticated concept of freedom, because liberty, it adopts that idea of freedom, saying you can do whatever you want, but you're limited based on the rights of other people. You can do whatever you want to do just as long as you do not violate the rights of somebody else. That's liberty. And if we don't have liberty, if we have a system which doesn't allow us to do whatever we want to do, as long as we don't violate the rights of other people, well then that system is violating our rights.
Say that again.
If we have a system that does not protect our right, if it hinders our right to do whatever we want to do as long as we don't hurt somebody else, then that system in and of itself is violating our rights. And so, nobody's free. Nobody has liberty with a system that does that. Everybody's being controlled, and everybody is a slave.
So basically it comes down to, on a system of liberty or freedom, you decide what you're going to do with your life, your liberty, and your property.
Mm-hmm.
And on a system where you're not based in freedom, somebody else decides.
And what happens when somebody else decides things for you, man? What happens when somebody catches your fish for you and you never learn how to fish, man? Or let's say you knew how to fish, right? Let's say you've grown up, you knew how to fish, but then one day somebody comes along and says, you know what? We're not gonna let you fish anymore. We're not gonna let anybody fish anymore. We're gonna centralize all the power of fishing, all the right of fishing into a elected group of people, and they're only gonna be the ones that are allowed to fish. Well, within a generation, atrophy sets in, and then a whole group of people who once knew how to fish were completely capable of being able to feed themselves. They have lost the knowledge. They lose the knowledge of how to fish, and now they become dependent upon this centralized group of people who violated their rights by saying, y'all can no longer fish anymore.
All right, well, let's go back. Let's backpedal a little bit then. And you look at a system, and most of us within society have religious beliefs of some sort or another. And we believe that, in our system, we believe that rights come from a creator. That's the basic premise of the American system, based on the Declaration of Independence. So that if you're born by your humanity, by your creation, with certain rights, and liberty and pursuit of happiness and life were mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. So you have these things by virtue of your birth. If liberty is defined as you decide, then you'd go one step further. Jefferson talked about governments being set up to secure those rights. The confusion that comes into a lot of people's minds is that they transfer it into a socialistic idea that you're entitled to health care, you're entitled to food, you're entitled to shelter, you're entitled to all these things, which actually goes into violating that basic premise of liberty, that you're free to do what you want up to the point where you're violating somebody else. This idea that these things should be provided to you is the big confusion with a lot of folks when they think they have these inalienable rights, that somebody else should be made to supply the actual existence for you. And that one step, that little step there, turns things away from the being created with free will to accepting a system that says you don't have free will anymore. From what I understand of Christianity, God, and most religions too probably, created us with free will, and devil didn't want that, because you make the wrong decisions and you'll get bad results, and the devil wanted us to be like puppets. And so any system that turns us into the puppets is a system that violates our very nature. And if we accept that, then we're really spitting on these gifts, and we're becoming, like you said, irresponsible dependents. And what kind of existence is that? What's the ultimate end of that existence?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, man, you're in some sex dungeon, wrapped up, a ball in your mouth, bound and gagged, chained, and you're just somebody's toy, man. That's all you are. That's what you become. You become somebody's just toy, and they get to, like a dog, you're a little chew toy. They get to use you however they want. You're covered in spit, and they take you out and they bury you on the ground, and they just pee all over you. They don't care about you. You're just a toy to them. And then when you're done, well, don't worry, man, because your kids learn to be dependent by watching you being dependent, and now they'll be our new toy to play with and to use and abuse and make squeak whenever we want to make you squeak, because you're weak. Which this is how they get you, man. They tell you you're weak. They tell you that you can't do it on your own. They tell you that you deserve the collective to come through and give it to you. And you deserve the collective to come and give it to you because you can't do it on your own. And you're vulnerable by yourself, and so come down to the dungeon, kid. I got some candy for you. I got some free school for you. I got some free health care for you. I got some social security for you. Come down into my dungeon, and then if you've ever seen Pulp Fiction, well, you know what happens when you're down there in that dungeon, man, and it's not good.
Well, then we get these people. We started the program off talking about people going to the Romney camp or the Obama camp based on this idea that these guys are going to give them what the other guy isn't going to give them.
Oh, yeah.
And the other guy's going to give them all the bad, and their guy's going to give them all the good.
This is it right now. Make the choice is yours. You want good or you want bad.
And both of them are supporting people who violate God's law and nature's law, And if you look at it, and it's just like, why these people can't get it.
I don't know, man. I don't know, man.
Look at the Ten Commandments. Okay, let's go down to number 6 here. Start with that. Thou shalt not kill.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
I mean, do you mean that I shouldn't stop anybody from being able to live? Wait, Mike. Wait, hold on, man. There's an exemption under that, right? Under number 6 there, it just doesn't say thou shalt not kill, right? It says, like, thou shalt not kill unless it's the government that's telling you to kill for them. Doesn't it say that in there?
Well, I don't know so much, but actually, just kind of covering these maybe cursory and then trying to attach the significance to government, because we'll switch from these as the 10 Commandments are to society. The book, The Law by Bastiat, and the principles put forth there is to government. And so, and if we're on track on both of these things, then we'll be okay. But what we have now is we're way off track on the transformation of these 10 Commandments when it's applied to government. And so people, things are messed up, and they're just reaching out for all kinds of weird solutions, Obama solutions, Romney solutions, which aren't really solutions. Somebody wrote a book, if we only do this, and, we just got to follow the Constitution, when the people don't understand the framework of the Constitution, what it is anyways, and what's underpinning the whole concept of liberty and people's rights, that sort of thing. So then, thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. This lying and cheating and stealing and taking all that stuff. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox. In 1913, when they started this hideous income tax just to hit the rich, that was coveting all these people's property. They got so much, let us have it, we'll redistribute it. That's Marxism going to work there. And so this transformation, which you can't do individually, people somehow think they can do it with government. And they're blinded to the fact that the guys that they're supporting, Romney, Ryan, Obama, Biden, whatever it might be, and I'll even get into Gary Johnson and Jim Gray and their thing, is that they violate these principles of free will, self-determinism, that transfers, when you transfer this thing to government, say, okay, God says not to do these things, right, and then we were born with these inalienable rights. Bastiat, in the beginning of his book, talks about what then is law. It's a collective organization of the individual right to lawful defense. So, and you think, okay, here's Bastiat, he's talking about, the foundation is you got these rights. The second thing is each of us have a natural right from God to defend these rights. All right, to defend his person, his liberty, and his property. We have a natural right to defend these things. Okay? Yep. These are the 3 basic requirements of life. And the preservation of any one of them is completely dependent on the preservation of the other 2. For what are our faculties but the extension of our individuality? So we have the right to defend these life, liberty, and property. By force, we have a right to defend these things.
If somebody's coming at me, to kill me, to take my stuff away from me, I got every right to pop a cap up in them.
All right. So then, it follows that we have a right as a group to organize and support a common force to protect these rights constantly. We have a right to form a group to do that. And so we do that. And the whole reason that this group, government, exists, its whole reason for existing, its whole lawfulness is based on individual right. And the common force that protects the collective right cannot logically have any other purpose, any other mission than that for which it acts as a substitute. It's going to act as a substitute. I'm going to delegate to government.
For the individual.
Yep. This collective organization of this force that we have a right to defend our life, our liberty, and our property. That's all this government can do. All right. Thus,
protect it.
Yeah.
Protect it.
Protect these rights.
Right. Because I personally, I don't have the right to violate your rights.
Exactly.
I don't have that right. Naturally, I'm not born with any special privilege to go around and take your life, liberty, or somehow impede the pursuit of your happiness. I don't have that right. So, because I don't have that right naturally by myself, I cannot just get with a group of people and then somehow magically obtain this new right to go and violate the rights of other individuals.
No, because we didn't delegate. I didn't delegate to government the right to violate my life, liberty, or property. I did not delegate that to government. I don't think you did or anybody else did out there, the right to violate us. We delegated to them the right to secure our right to a lawful defense of our life, liberty, and property, and to act as our agent in a common ground. You kill somebody, I've said to government, hey, we think Mario killed somebody, take him and let's give him the process. Let's give him his due process. And that's all that government can do. So when they pass a law, and this is where we got to kind of nail this thing and nail this thing.
Nail it hard, man.
And look at every law that they want to pass.
Every single law.
And that's when you're talking about the law perverted, when they violate the only mandate that they've been given. When they violate that, and so when you look at it and you extend a little further, government can only do that which the individual could lawfully do themselves. And I'll add on to that, government should only do what the individual himself cannot individually do, what cannot be done in the private sector, in that sense. So you got that coin that has two sides to it. Government cannot do anything other than what's delegated to it, and it should not do that which the individual can and chooses and wishes to do for themselves. They can't say, you have to have this health care. You have to take this health care. Because what you're doing...
Because I can't do that. I was not born with the right to go up to you, Mike, and say, Mike, you know what? You have to have this health care.
Right.
You have to buy this. So because I can't do that as an individual, I cannot just go and get with a bunch of other individuals and somehow magically obtain this right to go, hey, Mike, you know what? You got to buy this, man.
Plus, that's something you can do on your own. You can buy health care. You can decide on your own. So that's not something that, you delegate. We delegate a common force to secure our rights to defend our life, liberty, and our property. And laws are only for that purpose, not to violate that. So government can only do what we delegate it. And we only delegate to government, which is logical to go to government,
right.
Because if we're just going out there defending our rights individually,
right,
then we're going to be clouded by our own individual bias, and then you'll have your Hatfield and McCoy society. So
right.
as a civilization, we sit down and said, hey, this is better that we have a central force to secure these rights, to enforce these rights for the community, if you will. And so there's a small specific area of jurisdiction cut out there. And that did not include government coming and saying, well, we can now violate your life, liberty, and property. If we hire a guard service and a year later the guard service says to us at the gate, oh, I don't think I'm going to let you in. I'm guarding this property and I'm not going to let you in anymore because my job is to guard this property and I'm going to guard it against you. So these people at that point in time, they have become a perversion of what they were created to be, and they start ruling. As soon as they cross that slope.
Well, and that's when we have the right of revolution. The right to revolt against the system that gets created by particular individuals or even our own family that ends up violating our rights. We have every right to throw that system off of us. And some might even say the duty to throw it off of us. I mean, is it not our duty to be free? Is it not our duty to secure our own liberty?
Well, that's individual responsibility. But so now, here we are now, and we got a gargantuan federal, state, and county government. And what I like about so many people that are still involved in this political process, they say that, oh boy, we gotta get rid of this stuff incrementally or individually.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And so let's say a program like Social Security that started back, 1935, thereabouts. And people today, they'll be discussing the idea of fixing Social Security, or they'll be discussing the idea of privatizing Social Security. But when somebody says, hey, how can they take my fruits of my labor and make me do anything with that, make me save it, or just take it from me and say, well, we're going to give you something when you're old?
Oh yeah, well that's the utilitarian conservative argument as it is given to us today, as it's presented to us today, right? We say, well, Social Security, the government's taking our money and they're putting it into this fund, and it's failing. So that's why it's wrong. It's because it's failing. They took our money and they lost it all. They've spent it all. This is the utilitarian argument. What they should have done is taken our money and made us invest it into some private account, and somehow that would have made this act of government okay. This would have made this act of government not a violation of our rights, which is totally false, because the government is violating your rights just by simply taking your money and making you do anything with it.
What right is it violating there? Which one of them? Say their life, liberty, or...
Well, it's our life.
It's our life.
Yeah, absolutely. Your property is an extension of you. Thus, any usurpation of that is a violation of your life
and your free will choice.
Yeah.
So there's folks that will say, well, these for your own good. You'd be a lot of folks would be starving in their old age.
Oh, yeah. I guess people are going to be starving in their old age, and so we need to do something in order to make sure that people aren't starving in their old age, because I mean that's the responsibility of the collective, right? Is to make sure that people aren't starving in their old age. I mean, that's not the responsibility of a family or of the community or anything. I mean, that's the responsibility of the government, is to make sure that old people have something to eat.
Yeah, and I guess what I would rebuttal on that is forcing money out of me, and some folks that maybe would be prudent with it, so they end up with 1/10 or 1/3 of what they would have ended up if the money wasn't forced out of them. That somehow that's justifiable. Somehow, people understand that you can't go to your neighbor's house with a gun, hold them up, take their food out of their pantry, and take it down to another neighbor's house that's not doing so well. People understand that that's not okay, but they lose it when it comes to government. They think the government can pass a law that says you have to, and it's really interesting, this Social Security thing, because it was all volunteer. The folks volunteered into this slavery. They gave up their liberty for security. And, lots of folks today are wise enough to know it's all coming apart. And they're going to be eating dog food on their Social Security. Guys, it's not going to even wait to your generation. It's going to be hidden in my generation.
Absolutely,
it's
yeah.
going to be gone.
Absolutely.
And these folks are saying, oh, well, it's going to happen to my kids or my grandkids. No. It is going to be gone. It's not going to get that far. So, but this is what happens with a philosophy of theft, and that it starts off where you voluntarily give up your freedom, and then through the decades it starts getting enforced on a mandatory basis. So everybody now believes they have no choice. It's the law. They have to do it. But if you understand what the real purpose of the law is that we've been covering here, the purpose of the law is to secure our right, our lawful right to defend our life, liberty, and property. And so if that's the purpose of the law, how then can the law do the opposite of that?
Only by perverting it.
Perverting
That's the only way it can be done. And you know, this is what the perversion has created, Mike. When was the last time one of your neighbors came over and asked for a cup of sugar?
Boy, geez.
It doesn't happen, man. But
Might have been 9 years old, Mario.
Man, well, that's what I'm saying. You know, when I was a kid, that was the thing to do. You know, if you needed something, you needed a cup of sugar, a cup of milk, or, you know, whatever, you went and asked your neighbor, and it was all good. But now we got this system of the government is the one responsible for giving us everything. You don't even go ask your neighbor for these things anymore. Well, and so this is the atrophy. This is the die. This is your community dying around you right now, and that is a direct consequence of this socialism that's happening, man.
All right. So how do you answer people that say, "Well, okay, yeah, it's not very good. It's not a good moral idea to make people put money away and put it in a private investment, but it's so much better than making them, taking it away from them and putting it in a Social Security system." How do you answer those folks? They say it's so much better. It's like a step in the right direction.
Well, I'd say any violation of somebody's rights is evil, and evil begets evil. So no matter how fast you're going to get there, you're still headed in the same direction. It's a violation. There's no way. It's not right. There's no way to justify this.
Still a violation, and it's still a perversion of the law.
It's exactly what it is. And here's the problem, man, is that nobody is talking about this. And, well, I'm not going to say nobody, but the popular political dialogue is not talking about this. And unfortunately, there's a two-party system that has somehow dominated the entire spectrum of our political spirit. And you got these people who say that they're fiscally conservative, you know, or they'll call themselves conservative, right? And by doing so, they have been told that they are not socialists, and so they say if I'm a conservative, that somehow I am a champion of capitalism. But these people could be, I mean, the person who is going to call themselves a conservative, man, they hate capitalism today, man. They are all about the IRS, and this is one of those things that's coming up right now here with the Romney thing, right? They're saying, oh well, Mitt Romney, you know, Harry Reid is saying Mitt Romney, he should show his taxes and blah 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 blah. So then everybody goes, well, Harry Reid should show his taxes. That's what the Republicans say. As if somehow, if Harry Reid capitulates to showing his taxes, this is going to make the federal income tax constitutionally sound. No, it's not. It's not going to make it constitutionally sound. It is an abomination. It's not going to make it humanly sound. It's going to be a violation of somebody's rights no matter what. And so, no, they won't say that, though. You won't hear Sean Hannity say this. You won't hear Roger Headcock say this. You won't hear Mark Levin. You won't hear Hugh Hewitt or anybody say that the reason why Mitt Romney should not show his taxes is because it is an abomination and that we should get rid of the income tax. And they won't say that because they love it. Because these conservatives are socialists who want to masquerade as being defenders of capitalism when they are so far from it, man. They can't wait to get their hands inside of my pockets, man. They can't wait to stop me on the corner and search me and see if I have any illicit narcotics inside of me so that they could throw me into their dungeon and have their way with me, man. None of them will say it. And it's like, man, we gotta have a real revolution here, Mike.
So you're saying these guys support tyranny, Mario? You're saying they're really tyrants, and they are, because
and that's why I'm calling them out by name on here, man, because we're here at Tyranny Busters, and that's what we're doing.
Well, and these guys, you know, you say like the guys, the names you mentioned, you know, they make $5 or $10 million a year. And so, you know,
that's dude, Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
He had a $50 million contract.
Oh, okay. And so, you know, how much does he net? And maybe he finds a lot of ways to get out of paying the taxes, like pretty confident was the case with Romney. But see, these guys, like you were saying, is they don't have a problem with income tax because it's not taxing to them, and
right.
So they will shift the argument away from the abomination of slavery, the income tax is. There are people that in this country, and the numbers are staggering, that believe the income tax provides for the schools, or that it provides for the roads, and all these other taxes are slipping their consciousness. The income tax is simply redistribution of the producer's money, and not really at the guys at the top, because the guys at the top are able either to find ways to get out of the largest majority of paying the taxes, and or pass the taxes on down the line, so that you and I end up paying for it through the cost of the product. But it's our fault, because go back to 1913, I say our fault. The average Joe citizen, coveting his neighbor's property, says, oh yeah, government, tax the rich people more, and we can have so many of these things that we want to provide for other people. And so we're condoning a system of theft. And when you're standing behind one of these candidates, Romney, Ryan, or Biden or Obama, you're condoning a system of theft. Doesn't matter. Like you said, the conservatives are as much socialist as whatever. And if you think for one iota, 1 second, one minuscule second, that Romney and Ryan are going to be less of thieves than Obama and the other guy,
then give me some of what you're smoking, man, because I want to live in that blissful ignorance, man, please, because I'm sick of being stressed and pissed and angry and hostile, man. I want to be nice.
So you're saying, I want the devil as my God. I want to be enslaved.
Please.
You know, I want the Republican, because he may open up the gas pipelines from wherever, and that's a benefit. And, but I don't care about the fraudulent Federal Reserve System, that the devil's money, again, because it's all created out of thin air and it's not something of any value or substance. And the bankster gangsters at the top of the pyramid scheme get this stuff. They didn't do anything for it.
Printed it out of thin air.
And then they can loan it down the chain. And the banks that they own down the chain from the Federal Reserve,
they don't got to talk bad about
They
them.
don't have to pay any income tax either on any of their profits.
Man.
So, and there off you go. And here we are enslaved to all of this. And my good Republican friends are saying, you're just a perfectionist. You just want to, we need to go step by step to get some morals and principles.
That's the tyranny, Mike. That's the tyranny that was planted in their minds long ago, and now they act on the tyranny. They think that they're actually like coming up with these ideas on their own. And here's one thing with the last couple of days that I came across. This guy Mike Slater, he's on the morning show over here, man, and he's this, free market libertarian. And his question of the day is, do you think that Paul Ryan is going to, be the champion of liberty? Is he going to come out and save it? And the exact words here was, man, it's mind-boggling. It really is mind-boggling. He goes, well, I know Paul Ryan's voted for all the bailouts. I know that he voted for the NDAA. I know that he has voted, sanctions on Iran. I know that his budget proposal is, doesn't do anything to actually decrease spending. $11 trillion in debt was it adds. So we know that he's done all this. But maybe, like me, he has been affected by the birth of the Tea Party and is now ready to come the way and be a champion of our conservative principles. And the reason why he thinks this, not only because Paul Ryan, not only does he think Paul Ryan might do this because of the Tea Party, but because Paul Ryan has invoked the spirit of Ayn Rand. So Paul Ryan is going to somehow save according to Mike Slater, the conservative principles because he's read Atlas Shrugged. Well, Mike Slater, I have something to read to you, my friend, right out of Ayn Rand's. Here, essays. I would like everybody to read it. Here. The title of the essay is The Intellectual Bankruptcy of Our Age. Just first off, she says, today the two camps are moving closer and merging. Just as the Republican and Democratic parties are becoming indistinguishable, so are the respective intellectual spokesmen of the conservatives and liberals. The terms liberal and conservative are two of the emptiest sounds in today's political vocabulary. They have become rubber words that can be stretched to fit any meaning anyone cares to give them. Words that can be used safely by any speaker who wants to be misunderstood in the greatest number of ways by the greatest number of people. So I now am going to say that Ayn Rand's name has become just as empty as the words liberal and conservative. Because if somebody like Paul Ryan is going to be exalted, somebody like Paul Ryan who votes for the indefinite detention of American citizens without any type of jury by their peers, if somebody like that is going to be exalted as some champion, some delivering us into freedom and liberty just because he says that he's read Atlas Shrugged and Ayn Rand, I'm sorry to tell you, dear girl, your name is empty now.
Have a drink of water, Mario. You know what? That's pretty good rant there. And then you think about this, and you know, here, look, he's an Ayn Rand supporter and whatnot. But where does it come? Where does he get this idea that it's okay to saddle our children, our grandchildren, with this astronomical debt to give to the bankster gangsters?
Oh yeah, because another thing Paul Ryan voted against was a balanced budget amendment. Because he thinks it's okay to saddle your grandchildren. He thinks it's okay, man.
Well, you don't want to saddle the legislators with being responsible to balance the budget. So and so like you say, you're right. You know, exalt a guy like this. His little budget that he was criticized for did nothing but like slow the increases down in government, and this is all and then all these programs. No Child Left Behind. Was the prescription drug benefit too? Wasn't
$500 billion.
Yeah. So here's a thief. Here's a thief. Here's a thief. Thou shalt not steal.
Oh.
Okay. Oh. Ron Paul had a sign in his office, and now you got on your rant. Now I'm starting to get mad.
Ahead,
people who supported Ron Paul are now jumping on Romney and Ryan. And they supported Ron Paul because he's a man of principle. Now, who are these people? Were they people of principle that they can switch to these thieves? These people, and in Romney's case, he's a millionaire. That's fine. Let him be a millionaire. And, this income tax scheme where the millionaires, they're just retaliating on the plunder by saying, you guys started this stuff. We'll keep it going. We'll make you pay anyways in the cost of the products because you're all a bunch of thieves. And we're just going to be better thieves than you. But they like this system of thievery and redistribution. This is evil. This is the devil. This is coveting your neighbor's wife and property and everything else. This is coveting things that are not yours. And it's not theirs to steal. And I have this eternal hostility that Jefferson had on the altar of God over every form of tyranny upon the mind of man. And these people who are backing up these criminals, these bankster, gangster thieves, and acting like there's some moral virtue in it, need to go get a real brain enema.
They've been lobotomized, man. That's the problem here, man. They've been lobotomized by accepting these titles. They'll say, I'm a conservative, not even knowing that what they're saying is that my brain has been sucked out by a straw from some bankster gangster. So now I'm going to go ahead and support them because they have my brain now. They sucked it out. They have it. I should support the guy who stole my brain from me.
Now I got to switch to the Gary Johnson camp, okay? Because I see Ron Paul supporters going over to Romney, Ryan, and I see them going over to Gary Johnson. And I have this unique ability to upset folks because I won't like try to patty cake them into understanding too much sometimes. And so I'm on the Gary Johnson website, and I'm chastising and I'm telling people how Gary Johnson is actually no better than the others because he's supporting this national sales tax. And they're doing the same thing with this national sales tax. A lot of people in the libertarian camp, and they're saying, well, so much better than the income tax.
Oh, yeah.
That's just like the privatizing of Social Security. That's so much better than the government doing. Yeah. You know, you get to choose where this money we're stealing from you goes, but you can't touch it until we say you can, because we're the masters and the controllers. But Bastiat talks about this. And so that these Gary Johnson people can't understand this national sales tax, which they call the fair tax. That's like the Patriot Act, or what's the healthcare? What's a healthcare act?
Affordable healthcare.
Affordable healthcare act. All these nice terms.
It's so affordable that if you can't afford it, we throw you in jail.
And did you know that lying, plundering agency that steals from you at the drop of a hat? They're called the service. They're called the Internal Revenue Service. They'll service you out of your money. But anyway, so the national sales tax.
Sounds like some sort of brothel or something.
Yeah. The national sales tax. These guys are, they haven't bothered studying it or reading it. And the arrogance of Jim Gray, the VP, and what's his name, Gary Johnson. They're just going out. Yeah, national sales tax. Blah blah blah. They're selling the same snake oil. Then these guys that came up with the national sales tax, they call it the fair tax. I call it the fraud tax. We're supposed to believe it's a private group that's just coming out in some nice thing. Well, it's a revenue neutral program, and it'd take at least 20 minutes to go over all the things that are wrong with it. But the bottom line is it still does, by force and fraud, extort out of the producers their product to redistribute to all these socialist, fascist agendas that they got going on there. Such a perversion of force would be, in both cases, contrary to our premise. Force has been given to us to defend our individual rights. Who will dare to say that force has been given us to destroy the equal rights of our brothers? And that's this national fraud tax.
But I thought libertarians were non-aggression, Mike.
Tell me where they...
And I thought Christians were not about stealing.
This is the Matrix, Mario. It's just like they lose it. They understand they can't go to the neighbor's house.
So what do we do then? What do we do, Mike, if there's nobody to vote for? What do we do?
We have to keep emphasizing these principles, and we cannot vote. Am I going to go out? You know what? Why is my vote important? It's only really important if I'm out championing a cause that backs up my principles.
Right.
If I'm backing up a candidate on the basis that he's not as bad as the other one, but this candidate violates my principles, supports a system that violates all of our individual rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness.
Well, then your vote doesn't really matter because they're going to do that to you anyway.
I'm voting against myself.
No, you are. You're voting against yourself, and you're voting against every single free other person in the entire world, and that's wrong. And so I guess abstinence. Hey, let's we champion abstinence. For kids who aren't going to, or for people who don't want to have children that they're not going to be able to take care of. Who they're not going to be able to be responsible for. So why don't we champion abstinence when it comes to producing a government that we're not going to be able to be responsible for, that we're not going to be able to control?
Yeah, and then like going back to last week's program on this stuff, when you think about these things, in life as life's like you have a garden that produces what you need for your life.
Right.
And you have a garden that produces what you need for your happiness. And you have a garden that produces, your liberty, if you will.
The Liberty Garden.
Yeah, Liberty Garden. And if you're not taking out the weeds out of all these gardens, then the garden is going to get overgrown with weeds. You're going to die because you got no food to eat. and you're going to be miserable because the weeds have choked out your happiness. And these weeds of these violations, these perversions of the law, choke out your liberty. And so you say, well, what are you going to do when you got two camps that are choking out our liberty, selling us snake oil, false sense of security? You're better off working on the garden. You got lots of things you could do.
Right.
I'm going to the water board and go over there and say, you know what, you guys are stealing from the clients of the water district here, $1,100 a month for a 1-hour meeting. I mean, you guys are stealing. This is theft. Thou shalt not steal. You say you're Christians. I don't get this. And there's lots of little local places where you can do that.
Well, you said it earlier, Mike. You said, do I just practice this thou shalt not steal 50% of my life? Or do I practice it 100% of my life? I mean, how do you call yourself? I don't get it. How do you call yourself a God-fearing Christian person if you're going to sit there and not defend and live by these laws that were given to you by God? I mean, you could violate this law. You can vote for somebody who's going to violate these laws and die the next moment. If you vote for Mitt Romney, who's going to violate these laws, he's going to kill, he's going to steal, he's going to covet, and you vote for him, and you put that out there, and what if you walk out of the voting booth and then die that next instant? What's going to happen to you when you get to those pearly gates?
Yeah,
how do you explain that one away?
Yeah, Mara, they got that disconnect. That's still that same disconnect. They think they voted for the best of the two evils, and it's better, and they're doing less damage, and they don't understand that they're still sanctioning violation of other human beings. How can anybody sit there in good conscience vote for a Mitt Romney or an Obama, and knowing that these characters will continue the same Justice Department that locks up hundreds of thousands and millions of people?
I got it here, man. That locks up millions of people for drugs here. 2009 total people who are in the system for drugs. 1,725,387 people are in the system. 1 million of those are on probation, just waiting to go back in. Just waiting. You just wait till you do something else, and we're gonna bring you back in here, and then we're gonna throw this last charge that we weren't supposed to be able to charge you again with, but who gives a care about all those constitutional things? We got another 294,000 people on parole. Yo, just wait till oh man, those guys, they're probably almost 3 strikes and you're out. And then in the federal prison, we got 100,000 people in prison for drug possession, right? And then in state prisons, we got another 242,000 people.
You just want to empty the prisons. You want the prisons full so there's no room for murderers and rapists. I mean, oh, is that what they're doing?
I challenge anybody to. I tried to look for this fact, and maybe somebody could help me. If you're watching the show at any point in time, email us at tyrannybusters@hotmail.com and show me who the prison guard unions, what candidates they support. I want to know what candidates the prison guards union support, and thus, what are the policies of these candidates, and how willing are they to violate the natural rights of people in order to make sure that these prison guards continue to have high-paying wages.
Yeah, and then for those folks that think that the Obama administration, more for personal civil liberties, this stuff hasn't slowed down at all. But our system, our government, what we allow these people to do by voting for these guys is to violate all of these people's rights, their life, their liberty, and their property. And when our government's supposed to be securing that, and they're violating all the rest of us, people that don't use drugs.
Yes, they are.
Okay,
yes.
Because where do they get the money to pay for all of this?
Oh yeah, this is.
So they, yeah.
No, it's a perfect example here, right? This lady today, she was pissed off because there's people out there, homeless people, picking up her, going through her trash cans to get her recyclables, right? She says, I'm sick of having these people come through because I know that they're just and people asking me for money. I'm sick of these things, man. You know, I shouldn't have to give these people money. People should be arrested for going through my trash can. And I said, okay, so you're mad because they're going to get money without asking you for it. You want to throw them in jail, so then you have to give money for their incarceration. Like, the end product is the same here, man.
Yeah, but she thinks someone else is paying for it, not her. And if they're taking the recyclables out of her trash, how's that costing her unless they're making a mess?
Yeah, well, it's not really costing her much. I mean, I understand your trash is very important. That's why you put it out on the curb every Friday, and you don't want anybody going through that. All
right, so do we think we got some tyranny busted upon some people's minds here, Mario, today?
Well, I don't know, Mike, but I know I got a little bit of stress off my chest. It's hot as hell here in San Diego right now. You know, I've got the man breathing down my neck every day. You know, Mike, what I did, Mike? I took your advice, and when I got my paycheck last week, you know what I did? I opened it up, man, and I looked at it, man, and I said, God damn, look how much money they took from me, man. Oh my gosh, what could I have done with 30% more of my money? I mean, what could I have done with that, man?
Well, you're selfish, Mario. You don't want to share.
Yeah, well,
you just got to get an attitude adjustment.
Thanks
here.
for getting me pissed off, Mike. I really appreciate it. So you broke some tyranny out of my mind.
All right, well, we want some tyranny busting all over. We want people to have an eternal hostility on the altar of God.
Right.
Upon every form of tyranny over the mind of man, an eternal hostility for every form of theft done by your government, the same kind of hostility you would have if someone came into your house and stole something that's precious for you, or you saw somebody stealing from somebody else. You're going to have a hatred towards the act of theft. Not necessarily the person that's doing it. It's supposed to have forgiveness in your heart to them, but to the act. Don't sanction it through government. It's the same darn thing, and I'm going to be there, and I'm going to tell you, and you can get mad at me for just saying the truth over and over again. I don't care. I'm going to say the truth. You need to be mad at someone other than me.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place, just as pissed off.
There you go.
Tyranny Busters. Tyranny Busters. Tyranny Busters. Tyranny Busters. Tyranny Busters.